Today, we're going to take a look at some incredible research that's come out by a group called the Lausanne Movement. I think you're going to find some just really encouraging key initiatives going on in the global work of the body of Christ. It's going to teach you some things about how God's moving and where he's working, but it's also going to give you some key insight as to the current barriers and struggles facing the church. It may be places where you and people you know could be strategic in addressing those barriers and helping everyone who needs the hope of Jesus to discover that hope. Looking forward to today's conversation. Norval, as always, I love sitting down with you and looking at the state of the gospel, the state of the kingdom, and thinking through as leaders the places that we can play a part in that bigger story. Gosh, I guess it's probably almost a year ago, you were at the Lausanne Congress that took place over there in Seoul, South Korea. For the leaders who are listening who just haven't even heard about what Lausanne is or any of those things, what would be your kind of 30-second encapsulation of who they are and kind of their background before we jump into the document?
Well, in 1973, Billy Graham and John Stott convened a group of, I think, 3,000 some leaders in Lausanne, Switzerland, for a World Congress on Evangelization, or a Congress on World Evangelization. Out of that Congress it became more than just an event. It became a movement of leaders of different evangelical traditions in different parts of the world. That's been going on since then. They've done several of these big conferences. They do a lot of research, papers, conversations. There's a whole track for young leaders. And I was privileged to be at the last Congress, which was held, like you said, in Incheon, Seoul, Korea. Over 6,000 men and women from virtually every country in the world were there. And there were another 5,000 or 6,000 that were online. So it was a massive event. It really felt like heaven. And so now they've published this study. I just received it today.
Wow.
From the organization of the Lausanne Movement, where they have they surveyed approximately 1,100 men and women from 120 countries of the world.
Wow.
So it's a global research of a relatively small sample of the Christian population. Probably leaders, probably influential Christians responded to this, and they published the findings. There are 7 areas of key findings where they have published, and this paper just came out today. We'll put a link to the website where you can download for free this and read this whole thing. On the show notes and in the video description below.
I love it. So Norval, let's jump in here. I'll just kind of start reading us through reading us through the first one, and we can just kind of navigate what some of these findings really mean for Christian leaders in the world today. Right. So the first key finding was that even though leaders report that the church's outlook has declined compared to, say, 5 years ago, there is actually growing hope for the future. Across all regions, and particularly among younger leaders, many expect the church to flourish and that Christianity's influence in society is going to rise with new opportunities to advance the Great Commission in the next 5 years. Some challenges remain, but the tone is not of despair, but of renewed hope and anticipation for the ongoing mission in the world. Norval, I think, particularly as an American Christian, right, I see news articles that talk about 15,000 churches closing over the past 10 years or something to that effect, and there can be a real sense of hopelessness or despair. But to hear this message that no, there's actually a renewed hope or vision or passion for the future among so many believers, man, that's a word of encouragement to me.
It is definitely encouraging. We've had a conversation before about this quiet revival that they say it's going on in the West. Of course, Christianity continues to grow at rapid pace in what is called the Global South. Latin America, which is where I come from, the church struggles. There are issues. There's a lot to critique in the work of the church in Latin America. But nobody can deny that people are coming to Jesus in droves. People are choosing Jesus in droves.
Well, and even to our Western friends, I'd say, there was a recent article published by the Wall Street Journal, of all places, talking about the increase in Bible sales as high as 22%. And the people looking for ancient hope and ancient truth lived out of faithful lives of men and women. And so, I was talking to a wonderful brother who just said, yeah, our Amazon rep called us asking, hey, what have you guys done? What new marketing thing are you doing that's causing all of your books to sell so much? Amazon sells all these books and all these things, and it's a Christian publisher. And he said, listen, we haven't changed any of our marketing. There's this thing called the Holy Spirit. Let me introduce you to him. And man, that gave me such hope, because I think the sales and purchase of Bibles is probably the best indication of revival that you could have.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting. The perception of Christians around the world is that it's growing. That's data. We get these news from Barna and from Pew and all of this talking about a resurgence of an interest in religion, an increase in church attendance, particularly among Gen Z and all of that. And then we have stories like one that Martin Durham from England told us about. This one of his friends, one of the people that of his workers, I think, from his organization, was riding the tube, the metro subway in London. Mm-hmm. And he was talking on the phone to somebody about a church matter in a subway cart full of people. And so when he hung up his phone, somebody he had never met, this guy was sitting there just eavesdropping on his conversation, came and said, listen, I heard you were talking about church. Ever since some time ago, I've started reading the Bible, and I have some questions. Where do I go? Do you know what a church that I can go to? And so he told him about his church, invited him to a meeting. He came to a meeting, started attending regularly, and made a commitment to Jesus.
Wow.
So, like you said, nothing can explain that except by the Holy Spirit. But the fact is, there is a perception that while the world has been hostile to Christianity, there is now a curiosity about the Christian faith in the newer generations.
Man, I love it. And it is so encouraging to see that mindset and that shift from the hopelessness that so many have felt into really the hope that I think we're called to see and sustain in Christ. And so, man, I sense and see that hope, that encouragement, and that positivity really echoing for sure.
And we have a whole conversation on that. I think we'll ask Justin to put it on the show notes and on the video description as well.
Absolutely.
If somebody wants to hear more of you and I talking about about this. Then the second finding that was very interesting, and that one's it's kind of obvious, but it's interesting to see that there is a consensus around the world that the digital space is a mission field. There is a near universal agreement among global leaders that digital spaces are now a vital part of the mission field. Actually, 95% of the responders identify the digital space as part of the church's mission right now. And it should be. But here's the thing. 95% are convinced that the digital space is the mission field, but a lot of them are still unsure how well the church is currently representing Jesus in the digital spaces, or if digital platforms are actually effective in making disciples, which is a longer process, is a relational process, and all of that. The opportunity is there, and it's clear, but the path forward is how we present online in a way that is both real and relevant. It's still a challenge for the church, is at the growing edge of the global church.
Man, Norval, I love this because I would say I'm a digital native, right? I was blessed to grow up with technology in my home, computers in the home, access to the internet, really from some of the earliest days. I mean, I remember having internet in the early '90s. So it's not really the earliest days, but kind of for the general public, at least in the States. And so, in a lot of ways, I'd say, yeah, I'm a digital native. I deeply believe that, and I think even somewhere else in this report, it talks about how the digital space is the marketplace, right? It's the Areopagus of our day, and so we don't want to be absent in that space. But I love that believers continue to ask this question, framing and thinking deeply about that phrase and that word, discipleship, learning in the practices and the ways of Jesus. I might be able to instruct people or teach people, but to live in relationship with another human being, and trying to figure out what that looks like and how to do that through those digital tools and those digital means. I'm a big believer that relationships can be introduced and maintained through a digital connection, and there's so much value to that in the room experience together. And I do think that there's an in the room value to the gathering of absolutely. The body. And so I think the church is trying to navigate some of those things. I'm a huge advocate. From day one, the church has used technology to advance the kingdom. Pen and paper, we don't even think of it as technology today, but that was the most advanced way to communicate a message in the era of Christ. You could get out and stand in front of people and say something, or you could write it down and you could pass it around. And the earliest believers wrote things down. And that's been the history of the church. The printing press, the advances with radio, believers are constantly leveraging for kingdom purpose the new advances in technology. Nothing's different about that today. We're just trying to wrestle some of those things down and make sure that we're meeting people where they gather, because that's where we want to make sure we're sharing the good news.
That's a tremendous insight, Daniel. Writing gospels and letters was the social media or the internet of the day. That's right. The new technology. And it is. The church has historically been able to leverage every new innovation, and sometimes be the agent of innovation, as it was with the printing press.
That's right, yeah.
The agent of innovation. The church was the agent of innovation that ended up promoting the gospel and with the translation of the Bible and all of that. Now, of course, there are tremendous barriers to fulfilling the Great Commission.
Yeah.
And the research identified a set of major forces that are actively hindering the advance of the Great Commission. Topping the list were the growing influence of secularism.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we talk about a trend. People are actually disappointed and disillusioned with humanism and secularism at this point, where we are in the year 2025 of our Lord Jesus Christ. People are, what we are seeing is people turning back to spirituality. And yet, secularism remains, at least in the perception of the church, and it may be a lagging indicator. It may be something looking back, the threat of secularism. But some of the other obstacles are way more on your face, like the political polarization.
Yeah.
I was going to say particularly in the U.S., but no, it's
in a lot of
global.
places. Yeah.
I mean, it is global.
Wasn't it 2023 or 2024 where there were the most elections in human history that were taking place? It was one of the more recent years. There were more elections going on because, democracy in the, in republics in the course of human history are a relatively new invention. Yeah. But the most people in nations undergoing an election ever. And so that political divisiveness and polarization really wreaking havoc on people.
It is. And it is everywhere. Globalization, I guess, globalized the division of the left and the right.
Yeah.
Everything is now talked about in terms of the left and the right. And there's nobody's in the middle anymore. Yeah, everybody is on both edges, and it's amazing to see how many. I don't want to go into this subject because it's so controversial, but so many places where pro-Palestinian manifestations and protests and things that happened all over the world, and its counterpart, right, indicating, without going into the question of the issue itself, indicating that divisiveness is really global.
Yeah, and as the article kind of breaks down these barriers, I think that politics is such a key one. But I was also really taken aback by the next two, which were the incredible decline in societal trust and the negative impact of well, quite frankly, the ethical and moral failures of Christian leaders.
Yeah.
Those barriers, man, they've just been so clear to me over the past 10 years of their lasting impact, and how that continues to be a clear confrontation in trying to press the kingdom forward and press the gospel message to the ends of the earth.
And the truth of the matter is, it's not going down. It's not decreasing. It just keeps happening over and over again. And every time a high-profile leader, Christian leader, has a moral failure or some form of ethical failure, it just hits me deeply, but it challenges me deeply. If people that I thought were so spiritual were actually falling prey to the same desires that have been there for thousands of years, same desires of, David doing nothing up on the roof of his palace.
Right.
And then, seeing a beautiful woman across the river or across the street.
Right.
And feeding desires for that, or Saul not being faithful to God. It just continues to do damage to the witness of the gospel.
So we see, the first finding they shared, it's about this hope, it's about this transformation. We talk through, some of these other factors for advancing the kingdom, some of those barriers. Really, and we also talk about the digital space as being a critical one for advancing the kingdom. But I'm really curious what you think about this finding. It's talking about trusted voices, how creatives in the West and pastors in the South are some of those trusted voices. If a barrier to the gospel has been trust, these are some of the people that people are trusting. This is what they found, Norval. When asked who holds the most trust and impact in sharing the gospel today, responses varied by region. In North America and parts of Europe, respondents highly valued the rising influence of Christian creatives, artists, storytellers, digital communicators who connect with culture in compelling ways. In contrast, Africans and Asian leaders pointed to pastors as the most trusted and impactful voices in their context. These differences reflect how cultural dynamics shape gospel witness, and they underscore the need for regionally rooted strategies that affirm both innovation and tradition. What are some of your kind of reactions to that? I don't know if that's how it would have come back 20 years ago.
Oh, definitely not. Because I'm trying to think, where did that idea of creatives as being the most influential people for the sake of the gospel? Mm-hmm. I know that creatives and influencers are now, that influencer has become a word now.
Right.
Everybody's an influencer, and everybody's trying to build a following on YouTube. We are.
Yeah, sure.
And we hope that people that watch us will like us, will comment on our videos.
I see what you're doing there,
and will
Norval.
subscribe so that our videos can reach more people.
That's right.
But it did surprise me a little. It did not surprise me that in the Global South, pastors still hold quite a bit of trust. and that's a good thing. That's the influence of the church. But the rise of these creative influencers, storytellers, as I said, Christian movies, Christian TV shows, now on mainstream streaming
Platforms.
services like The Chosen. It's a phenomenon. It's a global phenomenon that shows that it. I'm a fan. That you can use good storytelling and quality cinematography and all of that to tell the story of Jesus, and it will be compelling for a broader audience than just the Christians.
Yeah.
The story of David is the same thing. The series that is on streaming services about the King David and his dynasty. So it's a very interesting aspect of this that apparently has been noticed. But across the board, there was one of these trustworthy, let's say, proclaimers of the gospel, let's say this, that are trusted, is actually the life of a Christian that is really living the Christian faith, that is really following Jesus. It was across the board in every different region of the world that it wasn't more than the pastors of influencers, but it was a significant part of the trusted voices in Christianity around the world are people like you and I, if we are living our faith in the day-to-day relationships with people.
So the most influential Christian witness is the trusted friend of an unbeliever.
Yeah.
Right? So an unbeliever that has a trusted friend who loves the Lord, that's going to be the most influential.
And who loves them.
That's right.
And who expresses that love sacrificially towards them.
So good.
And which will bring up the question, why do you do this to me?
Right.
We love to hear the stories about the guy on the tube in London who asked out of the blue to go to a church. But honestly, those are not the majority. The majority of people come to Christ through the influence of a close friend or relative. That's statistically proven.
Wow.
And it continues to be so.
And I love that. This next key finding from their research was really, Norval, I'll just say it plainly. It was really encouraging to me, despite some of its discouragement, because it's exactly what a space that God has called us to work in and to serve in. And it was just identifying, these leaders, they recognize that they need to be able to respond to global challenges, but they don't necessarily feel equipped to do so. They want to lead in their country and context, but they don't necessarily feel like they're ready to do so. They identify a couple of major issues, right? Trying to figure out artificial intelligence. That's a difficult one. Radical politics.
Not only for the church, that's for all of us.
Well, that's for all of us, yeah. Declining societal trust, all significant threats to the gospel. But most of the majority of the Christian leaders they surveyed said, hey, we're not really sure if the body of Christ is ready to address these issues. We need future-oriented leadership, theological engagement, and innovative strategies. That's kind of their key finding there. Norval, what resonates with you? Where do you think, where do you think ILI is in the history of kind of addressing some of those issues?
Well, it just continues. We continue to hear it over and over and over again. The reason for all of the things that are not so positive is a leadership crisis.
Yeah.
And the reason for the things that are going well is, first of all, because of the sovereign action of the Spirit of God, but also good leadership.
Yeah.
So, and to me, every time I read a report like this, or if I go to a conference, like we have participated at a conference called Missio Nexus in Orlando, Florida, a couple months ago or last month, is to see that where there is greatest need it's a space where we're in, where we are contributing to the body of Christ.
Praise
So it
God.
makes us feel like our work is relevant. ILI equips leaders with 8 biblical core values.
Yep.
And by doing so, we can help them address these shortcomings or these weaknesses of the church. Like it says, it requires leadership.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we're going to be able to accomplish, or to, let's say, to fill the gap.
Yeah.
In those areas of even in digital media, artificial intelligence, in areas like trust, with teaching on integrity, on leaders, building leaders of character.
That's right.
In areas like reaching the younger generation, and all of that. And it's just such a privilege to be part of the solution.
Right. And I think even from our very beginnings, there was a key emphasis on making sure that what we're delivering is biblical, relevant, and transferable, and being motivated by that continuing thing. And so helping to lay a firm foundation that helps those future-oriented leaders to see, address, and respond to just the varied crises and struggles that are going on today, and really to live in community with others who are already navigating a lot of those things. And so as we think through that particular finding from this report, I just praise God that, again, we're not able to address every issue and everything, but this is right smack in the middle of the calling that God has placed on us as leaders within the International Leadership Institute. Absolutely. To see, okay, God, we want to wrestle this down. Norval, walk us through this next key finding, and let's think on it a little.
Here, the next finding is, which are the groups that are more or less reached? And their finding was that the wealthy remain unreached. Across every global region, the respondents consistently identified the wealthy as if you divide people by income groups, as the least effectively reached by the church. They did well with the poor. They did well with the people of average middle income.
Yeah.
But there isn't an effort. There isn't a strategy. There isn't a reaching of the wealthier part of the population, which is a smaller group, but it's Christ died for them nonetheless.
He did,
right? And this kind of highlights a blind spot in the mission strategies that will require some theological reflection, relational approaches, and some intentional engagement, so that we can reach people of economical and cultural influence.
Man, I think that's such a key. That's such a key, Norval. And here's really why I say this. You're right. Christ died for them. He loves them. Yes, they have material wealth or possessions, but that does not mean that they do not still desperately and deeply need an abiding relationship with God, with the Spirit, through the Son. Like that is so. It is the greater treasure. And I think that there are lots of wealthy that are languishing in despair and hopelessness. In fact, some of the wealthiest nations in the world that have seen just the incredible increase in suicidation and euthanasia and some of these other practices. And so I say that with a sincere heart of love and compassion. And if I'm frank, Norval, I think sometimes in the church, I worry that we're so worried about high quantity numbers. And the reality is you're probably not going to have a mission strategy that reaches 1,000 wealthy people, because you probably won't ever know 1,000 wealthy people. There's just fewer wealthy people. But that doesn't mean that they're still it's a reminder that there should be a clear strategy to reach different peoples, irrespective of socioeconomic status, and reaching that one wealthy person might take 5 times as long because they have barriers to relationship, because they're worried or concerned or aware that their wealth impacts the way people perceive them and pursue them.
Absolutely. You can imagine that on both sides of the issue, an evangelist of any kind approaching a very wealthy will be perceived as coming for their money,
Yep.
and which the evangelist himself or herself might be self-aware. And that in and of itself will be a barrier because they don't want to be that, money seeking person, but will be perceived as such. It's such a challenge.
And I think it's actually a really great opportunity for the wealthy believers that God has blessed with wealth to steward their relationships well, to recognize, wait, I have a calling to these other wealthy people, because they're going to, again, if I have the same amount of money as you or more money than you, I'm not coming to you for money.
Right. Yeah.
So to the wealthy believers, just an incredible opportunity to step into that space and say, no, this is what that looks like. And to remember, Norval, I don't think most people think of themselves as wealthy. Okay. But if we live in America, we're already in the top 10% globally, period. And so it may very well be that we have a unique way to reach people in our same wealth class, but who are actually in the top 1% in other countries of the world. And so it's just saying, wait a second, am I reaching the people around me? And how am I going about that strategically?
Yeah. It's Paul's words of being all things to all people, that I might save some.
All right, Norval, here's another key finding that they shared in this report: global coherence amid local variation. Man, that's a really fancy way of saying, hey, the body of Christ is one and it has many members. There's a remarkable consistency in the insights of leaders around the globe. Despite all of the different contexts, I think the authors really thought to themselves, hey, we expect to see lots of difference in the findings on these questions, but they actually saw a lot of consistency across generations and different market segments. From the digital frontier to the top barriers to missions, the survey revealed a widespread agreement on the key challenges and opportunities facing the global church. And so we want to make sure as leaders that we recognize that consistency, that commonality is I think pointed to some of the key places that as a body of Christ we can engage, we can mobilize, and we can seek to make a real difference. What part of that kind of stands out to you?
Well, we are one body, and though we are different, there are contextual differences. There are, obviously, Africa will think very differently than the global North or the global or Latin America. So it is interesting that there is more apparently there is more consistency than there is disparity in the way we perceive ourselves, our identity as the church, as Christians, as global Christians.
Well, and that reminds me, Norval, that I have so much to learn from my brothers and sisters around the world, that we're really not actually in that different of a place as we seek to pursue and follow Jesus, his teachings, and his call to make disciples, teaching them to obey all that he's commanded. There's unity in that. There's common calling and purpose in that. And so as I reflect on that key finding, it's just a reminder that I'm part of a global movement with a common spirit that's working out in the lives of ordinary people just like me, which is humbling.
One of the big findings of this was they call it catalyzing for the Great Commission. So which are the main catalysts?
Okay.
So if we're going to do this, what is going to help us move the needle in it? And
what were some of those top ones on that chart?
Well, the top finding overall was collaboration and partnerships.
Of course.
Guess what? Yeah. Unsurprisingly, that seems to be a word and a practice that the church is really waking up to.
Yeah, I think what I've observed, not only in this report, but even in some research by some other groups, Solving the World's Greatest Problems and other foundations, there's a real focus on that idea of collaboration, saying, hey, look, we've kind of segmented and segregated off here a little bit around our denominational focuses. And it's not to minimize the importance of our doctrinal beliefs, but it is to say there is a framework around which we can co-labor. Let's emphasize and focus and identify those things and walk alongside each other. And to be clear, I think collaboration is hard because it requires both parties recognizing, wait a minute, this is the greater piece. And so I've got to lay a little bit of myself aside, and you've got to lay a little bit of yourself aside so we can come together to get this thing done.
Yeah. And in order to have that trust to do that, one of the things that I've learned, it's one of those obvious things that, but when you hear it, it's like, yeah, it makes sense. There's a lot of conversation about collaboration. So how do we actually do collaboration? And this presenter that was talking to us about it said, the first thing is relationship.
Yeah.
Collaboration doesn't happen the first time you meet. It probably doesn't happen the second time you meet. It will require the building of a relationship to a level of trust where I trust you enough to release that little part of the work that makes me a little uncomfortable in your approach, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that together we can do something that's neither the way I would do it, neither the way you would do it, but it's a much better way than that will accomplish more for the kingdom. But it requires that longer term relationship.
I think that's
until real, true, deep collaboration can happen. We can collaborate in the surface up here easily, but when it comes to really deep, where we are really meshing the two organizations or two churches or two denominations for the common good, it will require a longer term
investment of relation.
investment. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Norval, look, I don't think we could possibly unpack all of these findings in one single conversation. And of course, I think we would point leaders back to this resource. They're going to find some good things. But as we kind of wrap here, I'd like to just say maybe together we could come out with a handful of just incredibly practical things that the Christian leader who's listening, what are they supposed to do with these findings? What are they supposed to kind of walk away with that they can take action with and do something with? And the first thing I want to say is, the key finding on hope, I think spread that message. I think there's so many Christians who are downtrodden in their faith, believing we're in a losing battle for some reason, like they've missed the end of the book. Christ is victorious. The church is victorious. And I think that message of hope that say, hey, across the nations, there is a message. The kingdom is advancing. The gospel is making progress. And the next 5 years will be better than the last 5 years. We see that hope coming. So for the Christian leaders listening, I would say to you, engage in sharing that hope with others. I think there are believers around you who would be so practically encouraged if you just told them, hey, things are looking in a good direction. Norval, what's a practical thing that you kind of take away as you listen to this?
I think that is definitely one. There is hope. The next thing is, how can I, looking at all of these things, how can I build on it? What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
And what we didn't say is this. We talked a little about discipleship.
Yeah.
The second catalyst was discipleship.
Uh-huh.
So how can my church, how can my organization engage in disciple making?
Mm.
When I was at the Lausanne Congress, we had a conversation in which somebody brought this, a difference between discipleship, which sounds like a course, sounds like a process.
Yeah, an intellectual.
And it sounds like an intellectual exercise. And disciple making, which is living, is doing
Formation.
life next to somebody. It's communal.
Yeah.
And so how can I as an individual, how can my church, how can my organization, my denomination engage in making followers of Jesus? Yeah. Helping people, as John Mark Comer says, apprentice to Jesus, become apprentices to Jesus in life. If that's the goal of my life, then why not bring people along with me for the ride, so that they can experience the same journey of apprenticeship to Jesus? So the biggest takeaway is considering the digital spaces, considering the challenges, considering the positive outcome, the positive expectation for the future. Where am I going to join this? There's a wave. Let's jump on it.
Yeah. If you're out in the ocean and you're riding the waves, you don't have to necessarily worry. The wave might sweep you up, but you want to pick whether it hits you on the crash or you're catching it as it's coming in. And I think for believers who are listening and watching this, it's sharing that message of hope. It's recognizing, where am I called to make disciples and to be a part of that disciple making initiative, recognizing that's going to, we talk even through some of the key findings that focus on where is trust in our societies today, right? It's in the relationships we have with other individuals. So, those individuals share that hope, engage in that disciple making process. And then I would just say, as we kind of finish out here, I think walking away from this document, I'm just walking away with a real sense that God is speaking through the body to bring a message to one another. And so my practical action for the Christian leader listening today is listen. Engage in conversations with other believers and listen to what God is showing and demonstrating to them, because in the listening action, we begin to hear a constant and consistent message from the Lord. And that constant, consistent message is something that brings transformation through the body, for the body, and for His glory. And I think that's some of what we'll see as believers work across, whether it's the faith and work movement that's gained so much momentum here over the past, 20, 30 years, or, just people engaging in those digital spaces, right? We see there's a need, which means we've got to be willing to try and to innovate, which means we've got to be willing to accept that some of those innovations will fail, right? Not everything works on the first try. And so to the Christian leaders listening, find that place, engage in that movement, and listen to what God's saying to others, because in the midst of that, you'll hear some of the things that He's saying to you. So those would be some of my practical takeaways, some of your practical takeaways.
Great takeaways, yes.
I think God's saying something for us today. Listen, leaders, as you listen to this, one of the best gifts you can give us is to give us some feedback. Let us know how this is serving you, impacting you, and the things that stand out to you and the things that we could improve. We want this to serve you well, because we know that we exist to serve Christian leaders around the world. That's a wonderful gift, our wonderful calling. We believe that when leaders are equipped, the gospel accelerates, the kingdom expands, then God is glorified, and then the needs of hurting people and helpless people are met. Thanks so much for being a part of this today. If you want to learn more about us, go to iliteam.org. We'd love to meet you there and connect with you further.